And good evening, folks. Happy to have you here tonight to the Morganton Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for September 2023. We've got two new items of business, which are rezoning requests on our agenda tonight. And if you're here to address one of those, you'll certainly have an opportunity as we go through our meeting to step up to the podium, give us your name and your address, and give us your comments on our one of these zoning requests. So to kick things off, we do have some old business we have to address, and that's the review and approval of our last meeting, which we held in May. And hopefully the members of our commission here that are here tonight have had an opportunity to review those minutes, whether you've got additions, deletions, comments. Seeing none, I'll move that those minutes are approved. Next item is to review city council actions that have taken place since our last meeting in May. And I'll ask Wendy if she'll walk us through any of that information.
So the only thing that went to city council is that same item that was in the minutes from last time, the rezoning of 0 Sanford Drive to HID, and you guys recommended support for that, and the city council did approve that in their meeting in June.
Good. And did they have any comments about these changes or amendments that we did? I think there was a list on here.
The amendments that were made at the May meeting, they made the same amendments that you did, except they chose not to disallow chain link fencing in the CBD.
Ooh, okay,
So they left that one to be reevaluated for a later date.
good. Any other comments or questions for Wendy? Seeing none, we will get to appearances. What that is an opportunity to step up again to the podium if you've got something on your mind that wants to deal with planning and zoning issues we won't talk about tonight, but you feel like you've got a great idea to present to our commission. We're welcome to have you here. All right, seeing none, stepping up, we'll move into the new business, and I'll open that up. Under new business, our first item is a consideration of a rezoning application submitted by 400 Meeting Street LLC, and their request is to rezone property that's listed as 500 East Union Street, 501 East Meeting Street, 0 East Meeting Street, 503 East Meeting Street, and 505.5 East Meeting Street. The property right now is currently zoned High Intensity District, HID, and their application is requesting to rezone it to Central Business District, CBD. Now, Wendy, if you'll walk us through the staff's evaluation of that request.
Okay. Chad, if you could put up the PowerPoint, please. Okay, so obviously that's today. Next slide. So these are the two items that we have on the agenda, and the following slide will go straight into that first item, where Hank has read to you in detail the area. The property is roughly bounded by East Union Street, East Meeting Street, and Church Street. And as you can see on the screen there are 5 individual parcels. It's obviously a bit clearer in your individual packets. All of the sites are currently vacant. The sites border townhomes across Church Street, vacant land across Church Street, commercial development to the rear of half of the parcels on the other side of Church Street, where you have an adjoining boundary. I'm trying to think how to best describe that, apologies. And where you have adjoining boundaries elsewhere, it adjoins vacant land, and then the rear portion of a single-family dwelling, that is the dwelling is located at the front of the lot, and this borders the vacant land at the back of the lot. Single-family dwellings border or are across both Meeting and Union Street from the other parcels. All of the surrounding land is in CBD or HID. So while there may be single-family dwellings located in that area, the area is up for development for commercial or higher density residential development, should any of the property owners in that area wish to do so. Does anyone have a question about where it's located before I move on? All good? Okay. The next slide shows the current zoning. As Hank has just said, it's in HID, and you can see the boundary there where it directly borders CBD on 2 of those 3 sides. The following map shows the future land use map, or the from the Mission 2030 Comprehensive Plan about what it should be. And that area is designated as commercial residential mixed, which is again what the surrounding development is at the moment, and would be a category that would be represented by the CBD category. Next slide. The differences in what might happen in zone CBD versus what might happen or might be allowed to happen in zone HID are detailed. I did not put up the detailed charts about the types of uses that could be permitted because it's multiple pages long. But in general, there are actually fewer uses that are allowed in CBD than in HID. However, you would get reduced setbacks and higher densities that would be allowed in zone CBD than HID, and there are the no parking requirements in zone CBD. Doesn't mean they would not have parking, it just means that they're not required to have parking for those uses. So those are the kind of differences in the 2 zones. However, we do note that for any sites that immediately border an existing single-family dwelling, the buffer requirements do remain as part of the rezoning materials that you guys looked at a couple of months ago. So those are the main differences in comparison of zones. Happy to take questions about those at appropriate time. The planning team is recommending support for the rezoning because there are these same existing uses that could be developed on the land if it was rezoned surrounding it. Again, any lots that are in close proximity to the subject site and developed with single-family homes or vacant at the moment could be developed, again, with those similar uses and similar intensities of CBD. Any utility or traffic impacts as a result of future development of the site would be expected to be addressed by the developer at the time of the development. There is both utility and traffic capacity in those areas. And any with the additional density available in zone CBD, that should the site be developed with housing, which while we understand that is the intent of the developers at this time, rezoning to CBD doesn't lock in that housing will occur there, though they are fairly far along in their planning, and they can talk to you about that. But should it be developed with housing, that would fulfill a significant community need that we have at the moment for additional housing. And it is consistent with the Mission 2030 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map. Any questions on that one for me?
I have one question.
Okay.
It said that the single-family use would still require, is there a single-family home abutting this?
So, Chad, if you go back to the current, or what is it, location map. It's up my first slide, Jackie's location map. Back one more. There you go. So roughly underneath where the little call out is, there's where it jots in. There's a vacant lot. So it borders a vacant lot. There's a single family home on the other side, there you go, of that vacant lot. And so this portion borders the rear of that property. So that's as close as it gets to an existing single family home.
And for that, they would be required to follow the appropriate buffer.
Buffer requirements,
Yeah.
which is a 15-foot landscaped buffer on there.
Excellent, thank you.
It's also, just as because of the little notch, I would say that probably makes it the least developable area of the site for actual structures of some sort.
Understood.
Comments, question up to this particular point of Wendy? Do you want to take the time to kind of march through I thought that was quite a detailed presentation here.
I think I will let them do that at their, whenever they time to present. Because from our perspective, it's just CBD, and that's one of many options that they have, but they can talk to you about what, they have more details on what they are actually planning.
Any questions or comments at this point? Seeing none, I'll open it up to the public for public comment. Is there someone here to represent the request for this rezoning request? All right, sir, would you please come and step forward so we can ask questions? You'll give us your name and an address.
Nicholas Parker, managing member of 400 Meeting Street LLC. Address 2925 Senna Drive, Suite 202, and that's Matthews, North Carolina, 28105.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Parker.
Chad does have your slides, or the materials that you submitted to us as part of the application, if you wanted to talk to those.
Sure, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Chad, do you want to put up those, that last PowerPoint with the, or PDF with their, what do you call those?
Architectural
Schematic, the architectural images and plans, the one that I emailed just a little while ago.
Let me bring this to the computer, hold on one second, okay?
I'd like to comment, Mr. Parker, those are rather intensive and very specific architectural renderings.
Thank
And
you.
Certainly appreciate including those with your application.
Yes, sir. And appreciate y'all letting us come and speak to you tonight and put this project in front of you. We're very excited. Kristen Pruitt's my business partner and our land acquisition manager. She's been working with this city for probably going on close to a year now to make sure that, you know, we bring a product to the community that, you know, they're proud of just as much as we are. So we're very, very excited to get this started.
You might want to start by explaining the connection with the neighboring property that the city owns while we get the slides up for this property.
Yes, ma'am. So Kristen actually worked with Sanja and Sally and identified the property to the, I guess it's the west of this Church Street property that we're in front of you to speak about today. And we worked with the town, and in January, City Council approved to let us go under contract to purchase that property. And this property became available shortly thereafter, and we decided it was an opportunity to create more of a master planned situation for that area of downtown. And so we've been designing this holistically for probably about 6 months now, working with Wendy and the city managers and city staff to put this together.
And that other property, just colloquially, it's the vacant lots around Jerry's Neighborhood Store that face Meeting Street there.
Okay.
Chad, I have the slides. If you can connect me to my computer, I think I can do that. It's like talking to the Wizard of Oz.
Hello, Chad.
Yeah,
There you go.
okay,
Houston, we have a problem.
there we are. So, can you see those? Okay, so tell me where to go.
Okay, so this is kind of an overall 3D rendering of both the Meeting Street property and the Church Street property. Where Wendy's cursor is right there is the Church Street property. And what we're proposing there is to 40 residential flats. These are not double loaded, they're single loaded. They all face the street, the flats do. They're accessed from the rear of the buildings, which is where the parking is. So the parking is concealed behind the buildings. That little jut out that y'all were talking about earlier, that is actually gonna be a small pocket park to help further buffer this from the adjacent single-family residence. And then across the street, the Meeting Street property, which is already CBD, we're proposing 16 townhomes and 54 corridor-style apartments with tuck-under parking. And that will be serviced by an alley between the townhouses and those apartments. This is kind of the sketch plan view. So the Church Street properties is buildings J, I, H, and G. They're roughly 30 feet deep and, you know, up to 100 feet long, but no building contains more than 12 units. I don't believe it's that rendering. Go back up one, I'm sorry. These are the floor plans for these flats. We're featuring 1 and 2 bedroom units, high-end finishes. And then if you'll go to the next slide, Wendy. These are our preliminary architectural renderings of what those buildings would look like. And we'll continue to work with Wendy as we get more into developing the actual construction documents to ensure that whatever facades or materials we use fit within the town's vision. Those are the townhouses, yeah. And then these are just some examples of some urban landscaping that we want to use around the entire project. Again, we're going to do the little tot lot on the Church Street property. The property directly behind Jerry's store that we have under contract with the town, that's going to be an urban dog park. And then we're looking at doing some other type of unique landscapings in and around the property.
So I'll just go back and show you that location of the, so back in that corner-ish lot there, Aaron, where we were speaking of, next to that is where that tot lot and landscaping and so forth is currently proposed.
Can I ask the areas that are above and below, north and south of that tot lot, as it's called? Would those be green space?
So
Those are actually not, yeah, that outline shouldn't have gone that far. Those are actually not part of our
so
project.
I
Okay,
can show you. So this part is parking, and then this part is actually that lot that's currently the Enola Group development. And then this is part of that vacant lot.
okay,
That's not part of the project.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, the H, I, J, and G are the 3-story apartment buildings?
Yes,
Okay, and the other ones are the townhouses?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. And then A, B, and C are all meant to be parking structures?
A, B, and C are 3-story apartments, but they have parking underneath.
Got it,
The way that lot slopes, it's the most efficient use of the space.
very good. And those will be like, sorry, like, can you explain a little bit more? It'll be like single floor apartments, or like more like townhouse style apartments?
More like a townhouse style apartment.
Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, these over here on Meeting Street and the Church Street townhomes here that exist, that's all CBD already. And part of the thought was to have CBD face CBD there to have sort of a similar interface rather than different setbacks across the street to what was on the other side of the street.
I believe where you're showing those parking lot to the east is existence. There's 2 commercial properties that border that now.
That's correct, yes.
Attorney's office and also the attorney board.
Over in this area, so I think it's the Enola Group
Yeah,
and
Enola
the
Group, yes.
attorneys,
And
yeah,
Attorneys, yeah.
correct.
But down 2 Meeting Street is currently vacant. All right.
That's correct, yes.
Other comments, questions? This may be a loaded one, but what do you anticipate the tax base to be increased by? Ballpark?
Altogether, Altogether, we're looking at roughly 20 million in investment.
Sweet.
In fact, we're closing on the land tomorrow morning, so we're in it to win it.
And construction would begin approximately.
As quickly as I can get drawings done, so probably 3 to 4 months, I'd say.
Awesome. Okay.
And
Any
the
other
intent
questions?
is to do both of them at the same time, both sites.
Any other questions?
Those buildings, the loft apartments are all, there is no common egress between the apartments, right? There's no elevator or anything. They're all individually served from the parking area below them.
The flats on Church Street will be
Flats,
served by a rear staircase, decorative staircase. The 3 apartment buildings on Meeting Street, those will be elevator access.
And the change from, in this case, was it HID to CBD, is that gonna suit your needs?
Yes, sir.
All right, real fine. I have no other questions unless you folks do. Thank you for your attendance, sir.
Thank you very much for having us. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address this proposed zoning change, either for or against it? Okay, so please step up, sir. Give us your name and your address.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Guido Sampaolo. I live at 108 Church Street, so a longtime resident. So I got 3 questions. First of all, what is the expected timeline for the project, from start to finish, since we're going to have to live with that for a while?
Could we ask you that question there as far as your timeline? I mean, as soon as you get closed, you got lots of other details, I'm sure, to work out. You talked about drawings. What would be your anticipation of completion?
If we started construction in 4 months, 3 to 4 months, the construction timeline is likely going to be 9 to 12 months.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
It does, at least on this point. Second point, is there an expected market value for the properties?
Yeah, the market value, just based on our initial pro formas for the 2 sites combined, is roughly $20 million.
Divided by 40 properties?
I'm sorry?
Divided by 40 properties?
It's kind of hard to look at it that way because these are apartments, so they aren't for sale units, they're rental units. So, we look at it as a holistic investment.
Okay.
Not on a unit per unit basis.
Okay, and let me see, last question. Currently, all of the residents on Church Street park along the street. Is there anything that can be done about preserving the ability to park, to continue to park on the street?
So there wouldn't be any change to the on-street parking in front of the Church Street units that are there. And one thing that had been discussed that would not be until they got to the zoning permit stage, may be putting on-street parking in front of these units as well. That's a potential option for the developer to look at. So there's, I think, currently only on-street parking on a portion of that street. So it's a possibility that that could be increased as part of this, but it would not take out the parking in front of the units that are currently on Church Street already. That would still be there.
Okay,
Did that answer your question?
yes, those are all the questions I had.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else that would like to step up and address this for or against the zoning request?
Good evening. My name is Fred Rowland. I live on 414 East Meeting Street, right across from the project. And so these are rentals. Curious what the lowest end rental is and what is the highest end rental projected?
You're probably looking at between, I'd say, 1,500 and north of 2,000 a month.
Okay, another question too. I know you didn't have a lot of, you're still in drawings and so forth, but building materials. Are we gonna have vinyl siding on this stuff?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and it's 40 units projected? Was that the correct number? Okay, it seems like a area that has very little traffic is now going to have a whole lot of traffic.
I have some current traffic numbers. That's probably more of a question, I guess, for us than for others. Chad, do you have that traffic map, or do you want me to pull that one up?
If you could, that'd be great.
Okay. I think I have it here. Can you put it on my screen? There you go. So the current traffic numbers are mapped here. There is still capacity on East Meeting Street and East Union Street. The traffic impacts from 40 units would be estimated at about 10 times that per day. So about 400, that sounds like a lot, but when you spread that out over a day, it's not that much. That adds into it.
More than about 40.
It is a lot more than that. That's the maximum number of trips per day that DOT estimates, because both East Meeting Street and East Union Street are NC Department of Transportation owned roads. So they manage the traffic on those roads, and they don't even want a traffic assessment unless we're doing 3,000 cars a day. So everything has estimated to have capacity there. If there were some issues along Church Street, the city would look at that. I don't know if you want to talk about where access points might be to the site. Nick?
Yes, there'd be access off of Union Street and Church Street.
So, and those being one-way streets, that would help reduce the traffic to some extent, because people wouldn't always be choosing the same street. They're going out, they'd have traffic on one street. If they were going in, they'd have traffic on the other street, obviously depending upon their final destination there. Given that it's 2 lanes and there are never any backups really in there, the streets have capacity to handle that traffic. There would be some streetscape upgrades expected along East Meeting Street as part of the project, however.
Would that entail increasing the size of East Meeting Street and
No.
coming into people's properties? No.
No, definitely not.
I had another question, but I completely lost it. Yeah, I guess
I
that's,
mean, most of the traffic loads drops off at Chestnut, does it not?
Again, it depends on whether
farther
these
east.
people are going out, and I apologize, I don't know exactly where it is in relation to your property. I
I'm
suppose
right directly across from.
Right directly across, so,
I'm right next to options.
I'm not gonna say there wouldn't be, you wouldn't notice any increase in traffic, but what we find is that if there are, say, if all 40 of those cars leave in the morning over the course of an hour, then that's 40 cars spread over an hour, so that's less than one a minute. And so
are
you don't actually notice it until you get into the, hundreds of cars a minute type activity.
So the people that will be renting, would that be folks that are already here filling a housing shortage? Or is that because $1,500 to $2,000 a month is, for the average person here, that's a lot. And so is there expected folks to come in from
I think
all
that
over and-
there is an identified housing shortage at the moment. I can't obviously speak as to who exactly would rent that, but I know that the other apartment complexes that have been developed recently have not had that many issues filling their apartment
Yeah.
complexes. They've all come up quite quickly, and that will be up to the developers, should the Site B apartments, to make sure that their amenities and, provision of some level of parking and all of that is attractive enough to people that they would make that choice for them. So the higher quality that they decide to make it, balanced with the price, would make it a more desirable environment. I do think that there is definitely a latent market here of people that want housing that don't have anything available of quality. But there may also be opportunities to to provide housing for people in other localities.
Yeah, I'm just like anybody, it's like, I'd be thrilled to have a gorgeous, high-end housing situation across me. I just wouldn't be thrilled to have not so,
Yes.
you know. Who doesn't feel that way?
Exactly.
Anyway, that's it.
If I'm not speaking out of turn, I think if you looked at the
Thank you, sir.
graphics, you correct me if I'm wrong here, the schematics that you have on the diagrams of, the one-bedroom loft is about 750 or so square feet, and the two-bedroom lofts total out, what, 1,300, something?
Yeah, so,
Pretty good size.
not only we invested quite a bit in due diligence on the site and on architectural renderings, we've also had two separate market studies performed to, help us determine what, where the rents could be or should be. And, what these market studies are finding is that, there is a strong demand for the rental market here, and these lease rates that we're expecting are very much in line with, the apartments over at Murphy Farm. And, what amenity we feel like we're providing is giving these residents the access to shop and eat and make use of the downtown area.
I will say that anecdotally, as we have been through the comprehensive plan process, one of the things that we have, other than new restaurants, the thing that I've had requested most often is from older individuals who wanted to downsize and move into the city and not having the opportunity to purchase something smaller when they didn't want to look after a lawn or anything of that sort, which surprised me. But that, I had, traditionally your downtown environment seems to be the younger crowd wanting to walk to, the restaurants and stuff there. But the biggest request I've had has been from people that are now empty nesters, and they want to downsize and not take care of a big house or a big yard and want that smaller space closer to the amenities, to the restaurants and things that we do have downtown, or the events that we have, like the festival last weekend. So that's been of interest as we've been through that process.
You're staring at me because I'm the oldest guy up here, right?
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak against or for this rezoning request? Okay, seeing none, step forward. We'll bring it back to the commission for further discussion or for a motion.
I would say that I think the rentals are, based on what I hear with the other units, and there's even older units that are here that have been remodeled and reconstructed, and the pricing that you have submitted here is very much in line with what's going on typically in the rental market in Morganton at this time. So if you can provide a lot of quality for what you're paying there, then I think it's a very good thing for both you and for the city of Morganton. So that's my personal opinion.
Any other comments? I would want to say that the difference between HID and central business is you actually reduce some of the available uses, which is good, but you gain in the two other respects as far as parking and your lot line clearances, which are reduced. So,
Does this fall under like CBD, all the other rules that everybody that's under that?
That's
applies to,
correct, yes.
With the extra 14%?
Oh, sorry, you're asking if it's in the MSD. I'm not sure if that has been decided yet at this point. Do you guys have an answer for that?
Yeah, I think
I think it should, yes.
Okay.
They're actually two different districts, but
All right.
yes.
Okay.
Reason I asked about the elevator was to be basically assured that persons of all ages would be pretty much in the rental market for these.
yes, when we first
Including me, maybe. Not to recuse myself, but anyway.
that was a must, that we had elevator access and covered parking.
all right, back to the commission. Is there anyone liking to make a motion?
I would make the motion to approve the request.
And we have
CBD.
a well-written proposed motion if you want to refer to that.
On the last page, where is it?
Doesn't have a page number.
I didn't see it.
See if I can find it.
Here you go.
Wait.
The Planning and Zoning Commission recommends to the City Council support for the proposed rezoning of 770. Is that the wrong one?
That's the wrong one.
That's Kirksey Drive.
That's the last one. That one. Too many.
Excuse me, we'll start over again. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the City Council support for the proposed rezoning of 500 East Union Street, parcel number 270-338-7385, 501 East Meeting Street, 270-338-9210, 0 East Meeting Street, 270-338-9244, 503 East Meeting Street, 270-338-9288, and 505 1/2 East Meeting Street, 270-338-9385. Shown on the Mission 2030 Comprehensive Plan, Future Plan Use Map, a commercial residential mixed land from Zone High Intensity District to Zone Central Business District, and the proposal is considered and reasonable for the following reasons. Exiting multifamily residential, existing multifamily residential commercial development and vacant land able to be developed with those same uses surround or immediately adjoin the subject site on most sides. Any lots in close proximity to the subject site developed with single-family housing are also able to be developed with similar or more intense uses as that in Zone CBD. Utility or traffic impacts as a result of any future development of the site would be expected to be addressed by the developer at the time of development. The additional density available in Zone CBD, should the site be developed with housing, would fulfill a significant community need, and the proposed rezoning is consistent with the Mission 2030 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map.
Real fine. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Rick. Any discussion? I do have a question for Wendy, where we say any lots in close proximity to the subject site developed with single-family housing are also able to be developed with similar or more intense uses as that in Zone CBD. And should that also have a statement upon request, which would be that they have to,
Upon request and approval, if you would like to.
or
as
upon
such.
application?
Yes,
All right, good.
if you,
Do you have any heartburn about making that amendment to that particular line? Which is that second one. To me, I think it's important.
The second one?
Any lots in close proximity?
Upon request, basically.
upon
A
upon
request.
appropriate application.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Good application, even better.
Please to amend number 2. Any lots in close proximity to the subject site developed with single-family housing are also able to be developed with similar or more intense uses as that in Zone CBD.
Upon appropriate application.
Upon appropriate application. So moved.
All right. So we have a motion that's amended with a second.
Second.
Okay, any other further discussion? If not, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? So that motion carries. It goes to City Council on their meeting, which will be 2 October, I believe, at 6 o'clock in the month of October. Mr. Parker, we thank you for your attendance here. All right. Moving on to our next item on our agenda. That is consideration for an application submitted by Settlemyer Holdings LLC, and they request to rezone the property listed as 770 Kirksey Drive, and across the road there from Kirksey Drive is 0 Kirksey Drive. The property is currently zoned exclusive intensity district with a corridor overlay. And their application is to rezone it to high-intensity district with a corridor overlay. And Wendy, would you march us through your evaluation of that request?
Yes. Sorry, I'm going to leave it with you at the PowerPoint then, Chad. So the proposed rezoning is, as you said, from EID to HID. The property is there. The large, also vacant lot on the corner of East Union and Kirksey Drive. And there is a sliver of a parcel on the opposite side of the road. Everybody good with where we're at? Great. The zoning map for this site, I've tried to kind of lay it out in layman's terms over on the left-hand side, that the purple bits are EID. The striped bits are where the corridor overlay comes in, and all the bits are, the dots are the floodplain areas. So there's a lot of overlapping information on that map that all relates to the zoning. So sorry, just go back one. Okay. The corridor overlay gives you a few additional requirements to, mainly in terms of landscaping, but and your parking in that area has to be actually paved to make sure that there's just a bit of a higher quality in there. The floodplain, of course, is a floodplain. So they can't develop in that area without doing certain things to either raise the building above the floodplain, adjust the floodplain, make sure that water can flow through that portion of the building and not affect anything in the remainder of the area. The outer bits are okay. That's the 500-year floodplain. Those inner bits are different there, if you zoom in. So, and okay. Is that clear? Just because I know that map is a bit.
Lindsay?
Yes, yeah. Apologies next time. Now that I look at it on here, it's much clearer up top there than it is there. All right, Chad, the next part then, the future. Land use map does show that this area could be under the 2030 plan, general commercial / retail. So at the time of the 2030 plan, we had more separated zones where the commercial and the residential zones did not mix as much as they do in the zones that were adopted in 2015 and came into effect then, where you can essentially do residential in all of the commercial zones as well. So that's why that doesn't mention residential and everything is very separated. But this would essentially, your heaviest commercial retail zone would match up to what is HID at the moment, given the location in close proximity to the uses on East Fleming Drive and 70 in that area, and obviously a heavily developed area across the street. You'd probably want your more intense development next to that. So, okay, next slide. So the comparison of the different types of uses. Again, you can do residential in that area. You can do a lot more commercial uses than you can do in the industrial district. But then you can't do those industrial uses like an asphalt plant, which you probably wouldn't put there in the floodplain anyway, but as an example of things you can't do in those uses. So certain types of retail might be permitted in both, or mini warehouse might be permitted, which is self-storage, might be permitted in both. But then there are some uses you can do, some you can't. If there are any particular questions about those from the list that's in your packet, please let me know. You do have reduced setbacks in zone HID from that in EID, because EID is pretty much 50 feet all the way around. So you would be able to come up much closer to Union and Kirksey and to some of the properties in the rear, though given that the properties in the rear are currently developed with single-family housing, they'd have that same buffer requirements that we talked about in the last item as well. Again, difference is residential is now allowed, whereas no residential is allowed in the industrial zone. And again, buffer requirements, we said there. So those are the main differences, but again, happy to take questions on. Overall, also there are more design requirements in HID than there are in EID. If the buildings in HID go over 35 feet, then the design requirements of the scheme kick in. If they're under 35 feet, they don't apply in either there or the industrial district. But if they were to get an apartment complex similar to what we talked about at the last one, then they'd have to make it look nicer.
Yeah.
That way. We're also looking at support for this one because it is, as we said, relatively consistent with what we believe was the future intents of the comprehensive plan with that commercial retail option. Because of that 2015 zoning change, if it was developed with housing, now we have zero proposal for housing for this. This is just to be in line. The main reason for the proposal is to be in line with that future land use map. But would it be developed with housing, it would fulfill that significant community need. The permitted uses in that EID district, those sometimes have off-site impacts. Those would not be consistent with the residential stuff in that locality. While there are some EID uses that might be compatible with that internal to a building, there are others that might not. The applicant has requested to preserve both that corridor overlay that we talked about to ensure that consistency of the development, pleasant streetscape, et cetera, for the corridor along Kirksey Drive, as well as, of course, the flood damage prevention overlay that would ensure appropriate development in the floodplain. And again, utility and traffic impacts, there is utility and access available, and any traffic impacts will be managed at the time of development.
Is the applicant for this proposal on the property for quite some time? Do we know that?
No. I understand that they purchased the property relatively recently. Eric is here representing them. He might be able to speak about when they purchased it, and they had an intent to develop it with a nursery. But
So they
maybe
weren't
not.
the ones that actually did the fill to raise that property, is that correct?
Correct. Good evening. I would be up there, but coming from Charlotte, so a little late. Anyways, yeah, I'm representing the Settlemyer family, Settlemyer Holdings that has this property, Brandon Settlemyer. More specifically, he came to me a couple months ago, wanting to know what he can do with his property, because originally he purchased the property a few years ago, or a couple years ago, for a nursery or a pop-up kind of nursery shop with their Settlemyer nursery. First thing I looked at was the zoning. I realized that the zoning would not allow a lot of the retail uses that we had talked about or residential uses. That is something that he's actually considering as well. Given the floodplain issues, you know, we probably are going to lean more towards a retail use, and I will be the broker or joint venture and developer on this. And with the floodplain as well, we realized that corner piece, and that kind of goes in line with the corridor overlay anyways. But our reasoning for the rezoning is to allow more uses. We will comply with the overlay as well as, you know, with that floodplain. We believe that it was zoned EID just because of the industrial use across the street. It does make sense for that to be a commercial retail corridor, given the master plan. It makes sense for this to be an HID. So.
It's a great piece of property, or it's ideal location. Comments, questions?
Can you remind me what the commercial is across the street there?
It's,
Siren?
Oh,
yeah,
it's
Serum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
yes.
I know it is an old code plan.
It's been through it.
Any other questions for Eric? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your attendance. Any further discussion here with the commission members? Hearing none, do we have a motion for this property to be rezoned?
Just a point of reference, the rear of the property that we're talking about is now low-density residential, right? This area here.
Double check what I said in the rest of the report.
Yeah, over there.
So it is, can I borrow this?
Sure.
Thank you. Apologies. I'll explain the rest of my day earlier. So it's zoned MID,
Yes.
but it is actually with a mobile home or manufactured home overlay. But it is actually developed with single-family dwellings. If you, Chad, can you go to my screen? So just to the, what is that, west? Sorry, my cursor's not showing up on that, but there are mobile homes on that site. And then there's a couple of single-family homes, but nothing immediately to the rear of this site, because that's also in the floodplain.
Okay,
And it'd be very, very difficult to develop. I mean, we always put mobile homes in the
that answers
floodplain.
that, yeah, sure.
And then those other homes up there.
Makes
But
sense.
it is in MID, which would allow some level of multifamily development as well, should they want to.
Makes good sense, though. Okay. Calling for discussion, is that what you, or what? You want me to-
Discussion, or if not, I'm ready for a motion. And it's well prepared.
Nobody on that side wants to.
Oh, sure, I'll make a motion to approve.
Just read through the,
Oh, great, I gotta read through it?
well, not the entire thing, we know where we're talking about. Just go.
Okay, very good. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended to the City Council support the proposed rezoning of 770 Kirksey Drive and 0 Kirksey Drive. Shall I skip down to the bullets?
There you go.
The proposed rezoning is consistent with the Mission 2030 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map. The proposed rezoning can be considered consistent with the 2015 zoning ordinance change to include residential development in all areas available for commercial uses. The additional density available in HID, should the site be developed with housing, would fulfill a significant community need. Permitted use in the exclusive industrial district include uses that could have potential offsite impacts that would not be favorable adjacent to an existing residential dwellings in the locality. Preserving the corridor overlay will ensure consistency of development with a pleasant preservation to the streetscape for passerbys along the Kirksey Drive frontage. Preserving the flood damage prevention overlay will ensure suitable development in a flood-prone area, and utility or traffic impacts from future development can be managed at the time of development.
Super. Do I have a second to her motion?
Second.
Bill, thank you. Any further discussions or amendments or changes to the motion?
Further down, a little past, further east on 70, are they redoing, that railroad bridge crosses over there, is that correct? And are they redoing that at this point? And will that shut down the whole road, or?
I'm not aware of work on that one at this point, but there could be.
Where are you speaking of?
If you were going towards Valdez,
Okay,
and left Morgan and went all the way down and you go by this property, stay straight on 70.
I'm not aware of any work at the moment in that area or any planned immediately for that bridge in particular for that. They're working on a railroad bridge over on West Fleming that they are taking down, but not in this area. That's on West, sorry, that's probably confusion. That's on West Fleming, not East Fleming,
It's five years worth.
Yeah,
out at Walmart.
for the depot for the train that's coming through.
Well, yeah, for passenger trains potentially. It's also old and
And where you're
not
talking about on 70 actually has that historic railroad bridge underneath.
any further discussion?
Good.
I've got a motion and I've got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Not, that goes to city council in October. And we're at the end of our meeting tonight, unless you want to give us an update on City of Morganton, Imagine.
Yes, I would love to. I was hoping you would ask. We had a booth at the festival last weekend that Jackie, God bless her, manned all day on Friday, and I did for most of the day on Saturday. It was a little wet at times. But we managed to get through it and get a lot of feedback from people on things they liked, things that they maybe weren't so keen on, things that, places in particular, we had maps where they could lay out, you know, I like this place, I don't like this place, or I think we need more development in this space. We have some pins that say Imagine 2040 and some Post-its that have a logo on it with the QR code so people can go to the website and so forth. So that was a great event to really get the rest of the public knowing more about what we're doing. We have another event this Saturday at Little Guatemala as part of Guate Fest, where we're going to have a pop-up event and basically do the same thing that we did last weekend, but just for a few hours at their event on Saturday. And the survey will remain open through Sunday. So if you want, anybody else that wants to do that initial survey, get them in there by Sunday. And that will be closing down because we will, after this weekend, be moving to the second phase of the project. And the second phase of the project is we'll take the information that we've learned, which a lot of the baseline data is now online on that Imagine Morganton page. So if you go on the City of Morganton's webpage, on the front page, you scroll down to news and announcements. There's a permanent link on there throughout the life of the project. As I've discovered with speaking to Hank before the meeting, cannot speak to how that works on a mobile phone. I'll look into that.
You just have to go into a site, City of Morganton, Imagine, and then it comes up on your phone.
Okay. So the QR code will, that's why we're giving out all the stuff with the QR codes to take people directly to it if they've got that piece. And hopefully they bookmark it and can come back and look at it in the future. But we'll be on that website now. There is a community characteristics report that details the data that we found about this is what's happening now. You know, how many households do we have? How many single-family homes have been built in the last 10 years? And how many multifamily dwellings have been built in the last 10 years? What's our population of people? One of the most interesting facts I found is that 3 times as many people drive into Morganton to work as drive out of Morganton to work somewhere else. So interesting facts like that.
And the survey
tell
can be
you
done
about that.
online, is that?
The survey can be done online. We do have Spanish versions as well. And if you really want a paper copy, we will give you one, and Miss Jackie will be the kind and generous lady that she is and type it in for you. And we will, so that'll be open for the next week, but then we'll move to phase 2 of the project where we'll start looking at taking all this data that we've gathered and all the information and stuff and all the great feedback that we've had and work that into vision and planning principles for the future of, okay, out of all we've heard, what do we want Morganton to be? What are some of the planning principles that we're going to set up around this? As part of that, we'll be having some more stakeholder meetings at the end of October, and on October 24th, which is this Tuesday, will be our next community workshop here in this room, where people can come in and hear more about the project and give us some more feedback on that, with a goal to working towards the beginnings of a future land use map around Thanksgiving. So the map that we've been looking at tonight, as far as what colors and what goes where, sort of by around that Thanksgiving time. And then by the end of the year to, as best we can, have that map finalized. And as part of that, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council will be having a joint workshop on December 14th to review those items and to give your comments on that items and your input into those pieces. Specifically, obviously, we would love to have you at the workshop and continue to review the information online, participate in those pieces, but that's your special time to be able to really get involved into the meat of it.
Can you say those dates one more time that we
Yes.
are?
So October 24th
October
is
24th,
the
yes.
next workshop. On a Tuesday night, it'll be like 5:30 to 7:30, similar to the other one. And December 14th is your December Planning and Zoning meeting. So if we do have an item, I suppose it will go first, and then we'll do the workshop after that. I don't have anything lined up for it at the moment. And then you'll have the joint workshop with City Council on that regularly. We wanted to put it on your regularly scheduled date,
Thank
so you
you.
wouldn't have to reserve another night there.
Perfect.
Anybody else? Well, thank you for being here, and we'll adjourn.